Welcome back to We Are Live. We are in Grand Center, St. Louis, Missouri at Midcoast Studio. Check out midcoast.media for more information. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Travis Terrell in New York. Travis, how's Brooklyn?
It's very loud, Chris.
We noticed from the last hour. Tommy the intern's here. Chris Gardner's running the stream. And joining us live in studio from KSDK, Abby Llorico. Good morning,
Hello.
Abby. Great to see you.
I don't even know. It's kind of afternoon for me, but I guess I'll say good morning to you.
What time did you start your day?
I woke up this morning at 2 a.m.
2? Is that all?
Yeah, you know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does that
so
mean a
this is
6 p.m.
afternoon.
bedtime?
Yeah, ideally.
Ideally?
It's a little harder to accomplish,
Right.
especially in the summertime. When
Yeah.
it's
Do you live in the
nice and sunny
city, or
out.
where do you?
I live in the Central West End.
Okay,
Yeah. So there's
that's
always
not
so
ideal
much fun
for-
stuff going on.
Right.
No.
You're screaming out the window. It's like, I have to report at 6 a.m.
Exactly.
So you literally go to sleep at 6 p.m. if things are going well.
If things are going well. Last night, I didn't fall asleep till closer to 8 or
Hmm.
so. But, I mean, sleep, what is it?
That's a great way
That's
to
what
put it.
concealer is for, under-eye concealer.
So we are pleased to be joined by a real journalist in studio. St. Louis has been absolutely bonkers lately. I do want to get some background on you before we jump into all the crazy stuff you've been covering. Blues coverage. Travis, she's got to deal with floods, murders, everything that St. Louis throws at her. And we get to sit here every morning and make fun of each other, basically. So we're going to show her some respect, and we're going to learn about her a little bit. I won't do the where'd you go to high school thing. We were just talking about that. Where did you hone your craft for journalism in college?
So I went to Indiana University, so
I've
I
heard of
am
that.
an actual Hoosier.
Good for you.
It was very strange moving there, though, because I did grow up here in St. Charles County, West St. Louis County, and when I got to Indiana and I see these billboards that say, you know, insurance for Hoosiers everywhere. I'm like, who would want to insure a Hoosier, you know?
Right. Karan, to let people come up here? Yeah.
So I was like,
Same what they do with fireworks.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea. But yeah, I went there because everybody wants to know why I didn't go to Mizzou. I wanted to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Did that work out? Indiana's it's a great school to go
It's
to. Carries a lot of
great.
weight.
It's beautiful. I also studied political science, and so I didn't even know that I wanted to do the TV journalism thing
Travis
when I
Terrell.
went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that, and just figured out in college I had some visual. It wasn't even broadcast. It was visual communications classes.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. I actually really liked shooting video and putting that stuff together. Editing is one of my favorite things to do. And so
If you stick around, we got a few jobs for you after the show.
I think I'm off
going
the
to do
clock
some
right
editing.
now.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I'm in a
Okay.
union.
Oh,
so-
wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Sorry.
Man, I don't want to mess with that. Travis, you were political science in college. You guys want to quiz each other for a little bit? Just think about this could be a 2020 presidential tandem here.
I would rather moderate the debate.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't even name probably 20 capitals, so I probably would be the best person to talk
That's
about
University of Missouri
political
for you.
science with.
That's
Yes.
why I didn't
Go
go to
Tigers.
Why,
Yeah.
why I went to Indiana for poli sci.
What takes you? So you jump into a class and you think, oh, this could be something I want to do for a living, and you probably hadn't checked what reporters, anchors have to do to start their careers off at that point. You're like, oh, this is pretty cool. I don't mind being in front of a camera and editing also.
Right. Well, actually, at that point, I thought I wanted to be a producer.
Interesting.
So I was most interested in that, and so I'm one of those people that I'm kind of an anti-procrastinator. Work well with deadlines, but I like to have everything done like very much with a comfortable amount of time left in between. But when it comes to my personal life and like my career situation, I was like, oh my God, I'm 18 and I haven't completely figured out what I want to do yet. And so
Which is ridiculous, by the way.
and it's horrible how much pressure is put on
Right.
people to get to that point. But
Tommy's 13 and doesn't even know what he's going to do.
Terrified.
wow,
For, yeah.
where
I'm
do
terrified
you-
every day.
Where do you drink water? Why do you have facial hair already?
I know.
13.
I'm advanced.
We're gonna talk to you about a story coming up here, but anyway, so I realized I wanted to do that, and so I just jumped into trying to get internships. I took some time off school actually, so
Really?
that I could go do the internship thing. I got one at I went to CBS in London, and I also went to CBS in Washington D.C. I'm not a my parents are paying for everything type of person, so I had to live with a family and watch their kids for them in the evenings in order to pay for a place to stay.
That's what people do. They offer that to
Yeah.
people coming out of college. Like they'll say, hey, Here's a $19,000 a year job. You get to be on TV. And guess what? We've secured a room for you, and you'll only have 4 roommates, and there are only 2 families.
Oh, I had to
living in
witness
there.
a woman going into labor in the kitchen while I was like expected to go to work the next day. It was wild. It was fun. But that's when I met this anchor in DC who kind of casually just off the cuff said, "Oh, you know, if you're going to be a producer, you work twice as hard for half the credit." And then the credit thing really stuck with me because I'm like, maybe I care about that a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, we all would.
I thought, yeah, you know, there's something to be said. You were calling me a real journalist, but let's be honest here. You know, the people who work behind the scenes often are so, they don't get enough credit for what they're doing out there. So, but that being said, I was like, well, I want the credit. And so I tried to be on TV and got a local news internship and then just kind of went at it from there.
Travis, we treat our producer with nothing but respect. Would you agree?
I hate Chris Gardner, to be honest.
Oh, wow. This is kind of a weird situation for Abby to witness this.
Is it I wonder if it's a St. Charles County thing once you leave the county and you stay in the area that you move directly to the Central West End? Because that's what I've done as well. Yeah. It's like,
do you all share cigarettes?
You know
drink
what?
Coffee
I'm
together?
tired. I'm tired of driving down Highway K to get somewhere all the time. Now I'm going to move to an area where I can walk there, or I can get on my electric scooter and scoot around over there as well.
You're an electric scooter guy.
Oh,
Yeah. Have you done any stories on electric scooters yet, or have we looked into these?
I've been working on one that we just, because of you, as you've mentioned, St. Louis news has been so crazy lately, but I've been kind of working on one since we've gotten a 3rd scooter company in town. What is it, Spin? I think it is.
He's the expert.
Yeah. Tell me about, how do you like Spin first off?
Well, if you want a breakdown here you go. A quick
This is very
comp.
real. Don't be careful what you've waded
There's
into
not going to
here,
be.
Abby.
He said quick. There's nothing.
A
quick
comp
about this.
between Lime and Spin. I prefer Lime. I've been Lime brand loyal for a while now. I like the higher handlebar. I like the handbrake, and I like the handling of the Lime because you're able to kind of maneuver it with your feet. And so you can just kind of have control of it. Spin I like as well. It's not the same, though. It's a lower handlebar. It also has a brake that you push down like the accelerator would, so it slows down gradually so you don't have that control. And then also, the one thing, a benefit of Spin is that it maintains
cheaper than I thought it
speed
was gonna
up the hill,
Okay.
where Lime will lose 5 to 6 miles per hour.
That's actually a legitimate point, actually. But I will say this. Have you considered a bicycle?
Walking's great, too.
Well,
Yeah,
and we
wow.
joke on the show that Lou Ferrigno was in here.
This is very
I've met
true.
him a couple times.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He told me to stay off the scooters
Yep.
because he fell off one. And then just the other day, I went over the handlebars on one in the Cortex area in front of people.
Yeah, how'd that handling do for you then?
Hey, I wear a helmet, though.
Were you going uphill?
I was not. No, it was rather embarrassing.
He does wear a helmet. We'll give him that.
I wear a helmet.
That's important.
Well, we'll have Abby interview you for the
He
soon-to-be
doesn't wear knee
documentary.
pads.
No, but yeah, some scrapes now on the elbows and knees.
We have a report. One of our listeners is in Southern California and says Jump, the electric bike equivalent, is preferred in SoCal. That's, to me, so I live in Tower Grove. To me, I'll see these, they're bicycles that essentially have like 2-stroke motors on them. And you're like, oh, look at this person in that stupid hat riding that bike. And then you'll just hear, and they'll speed past you. So that's a new level of lazy then, right?
Right.
If we're going electric bike over, because scooter, I'll give it to you, requires some skill. There's some, but if you're going full electric
No,
bike,
I don't know. Because I think that at least you can have to potentially pedal uphill.
Right.
You know, you're not scouting out the best uphill capability.
Break it down for us, Abby.
Electric scooter, but I don't know. You can like contribute with your own personal horsepower. I wish
Okay.
that we still had the Lime bikes here.
those
Personally.
seem like, yeah. Those,
I wish they were
see
still
one,
an option.
I still see one coming down Grand.
Well, that's
every
what,
once in a
like-
while.
That is definitely not a commissioned Lime bike.
Like,
No,
it was
makes me
weird.
Smile.
The other day, I'm looking at the map on mine, trying to find, and I'm in Forest Park at the time. And so I'm like, okay, there's some over here, some over here. And then a bike pops up, and I'm like, that's not right. Like, they're out of here. I'm like, why is this bike popping up
They're all in the
on
Mississippi
the map?
River.
And, yeah, that's what I'm like. I almost wanted to go over there just to see, like, what the
Right.
deal, like, did like a GPS device just get left behind, or what the hell is this? Because this is
Travis-
not supposed to be here.
Travis, are we seeing many scooters, or I just feel like you just can't. There's just no room for an electric scooter. What's it like in Brooklyn? Are we seeing any of that?
Oh man, when it comes to ride shares, well, ride share was already a difficult climb here in New York. The Lime scooter, like they have the city bikes, but the scooters, they're just the city government, everyone, even in Albany, want none of it here in the city, nowhere near. Look, it's just there's no room. People are already like there are so many different types of like motor vehicles for just individuals here in New York that adding an entire company worth of those things accessible to everyone would just be a logistic nightmare.
They just actually launched this, I believe, this week in Chicago. And I'm very interested to hear how that's going to go. I have some
That's
friends.
probably where you hung out, right? On the weekends at Indiana. Did you go to Chicago? Have you been to Chicago quite a bit?
I've been to Chicago quite
Yeah.
a bit, actually, after Indiana because I had so many
Got
friends.
it. Well, you're very popular.
I have a lot of friends.
We get it.
A lot of people are just importing me into the city for the weekend.
Right.
It's insane.
No,
you
but
should see my schedule.
You
but-
think it's going to be too busy, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And one of the things is that they have the bike shares already that you have to dock at specific places. But we see how people in St. Louis, a town a fraction of the size of Chicago, can just toss those scooters wherever they want.
my-
Can you imagine in Chicago?
Here's what happened the other
Yeah.
day.
It's not just us. We're not just bad.
This
Right.
is a
It's a little bit just
We're
us.
human.
Okay, I think. Well, I see. I'm going to beat us up a little bit. I think sometimes we shouldn't get nice things, but
there was a older lady the other day trying to pull into where she lived in the West End. It's a nicer area of the
And
West
you
End where she
stopped and
was
helped
going.
her?
There was apparently some issue there, and they were trying to. There was like a water main break or something along those lines, and she couldn't get into where she wanted, so she was already frustrated. And then she tried to turn down the alley, and I was walking to a Lime scooter to get it. The Lime scooter that I was walking to was centered in the middle of the alley where she had turned, and she got out of the car and like was cursing, and then just threw the thing down. I'm like, oh, that's the one I want. So I just I turned it into a Good Samaritan type deal where I'm like, oh, let me help you with that. Let me get this out of your way and get it out of the alley and move it over. But like she was very frustrated because someone just left it in the middle of the alley while a car's trying to turn down there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, being in the Central West End, there are a lot of people who are they are in motor chairs or they're in wheelchairs, and people are just not thinking about those folks who have to get into the streets because somebody irresponsibly parked one of these scooters. So
Right.
I don't know. You should go buy a bike. I bought one recently. Mine got stolen last summer, and so I bought a new one recently, and I had a wonderful experience at Big Shark Bicycle Company. You should go there.
Okay.
there you go.
Maybe they'll give me some kind of referral.
That's
Care
a
of that.
nice.
That's right. You want us to, we'll tag them.
I'll at least look into it. I can at least do that.
I'll teach you how. You won't forget after you learn how to ride it.
Oh my gosh, this could be the buddy comedy we've all been waiting for. Travis, start writing. Let's get this going.
How's the opening?
Actually, I did. I actually had a serious question though for Abby. I know that there are probably a ton of lessons and principles that you learned while in journalism school or studying at Indiana that probably may not be able to apply now in today's journalism. What did you learn in school that you know that you really can't necessarily apply now in your day-to-day job?
98% of things. Sometimes I think that I love you, Indiana. You are wonderful, but sometimes I think the little blotting papers I use to dab the shine off my face before I go live are more important than my degree because it's all in the field stuff. You learn as you're going along. I mean, they provide a wonderful foundation for ethics, but that was, Twitter is now so much more than a novelty. I mean, we get so much more news on Twitter, and you can't just sit there and say, we're not going to report anything at all until we have it confirmed from X amount of sources and things like that. No, we will not, especially Five on Your Side. KSDK is really good about making sure that we have solidly sourced things. Not all media outlets in our area even will be as good about that. But that being said, we have to at least get on Twitter and say we know something's going on. We have to be having those conversations with people because people aren't patient and they know they can figure out something. And then
Tough to play by different sets of rules,
yeah, and then the other thing I would say is that old school journalism is you don't have opinions. You're not a person. You are merely there to just report the fact in the news. And you are a person, and
Sure.
people know that we are people also, and you're not being asked your opinions, so I will not sit there and say this is my opinion on something per se. But if I'm at a scene where a kid just got shot or something, or this morning I was at an officer was shot in Maryland Heights.
What time was this?
This was at 4 a.m. He was shot.
So, when are you on the scene?
Oh, I was there shortly after.
So you're waking up at 2,
Yeah.
and then, oh, by the way, gonna need you to cover this.
I was already at the station getting ready to work on a different story when they moved
They
me.
sent you out. That's another thing too. And Travis, just as you asked that great question, I'm curious too. Do you ever feel unsafe on the locations that you're at? I mean, something like that could happen just one more time as you're standing there. They don't care that you're on the news. Something else could happen.
Right.
Is there a sense of danger? And I mean, I'm sure KSDK does a wonderful job keeping you safe the best they can. But on those location shots, is there ever, I don't know, I don't know if we should stay here much longer.
Right. Well, that's part of it, to finish up on that earlier point about how I said, luckily, this officer's doing okay. We can be thankful this officer is doing okay because I'm a human being and I'm glad the officer's doing okay. So that's, whether you call that an opinion or not, that's a human being reaction, communicating with my friends and neighbors who are, I consider the viewing audience, friends and neighbors. This is what's happening with that. When it comes to safety, we are very careful about making the right call. So sometimes you will see us reporting on a shooting, but we are at the police station. We're not going to go back up to the scene. Police departments around here often do a really great job of communicating with us. And we also ask them, am I safe here? Am I okay here? What do you think about this spot? Or is there any reason I should be moving back? We abide by the yellow tape and things like that. But that being said, we shouldn't make their jobs harder by being out there and
Correct.
making them babysit us. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of
Or even in the community.
Yes.
Yeah, that people are upset. They may not want to see you at their front door.
And I'll say the only time I've had a gun drawn on me as a reporter has not been in the city of St. Louis. It's been in a rural area. And so it's one of those things that you can't just sit there and have these hard and fast rules that, this part of town is not safe or that part of town is not safe.
Can you break that down for us when that happened? I grew up in a rural area, so that doesn't surprise me as people are really quick to, it's my property.
And that's exactly what it was. It was a person who wasn't sure what the situation was and why something had happened down the road from, it was a country road over in Illinois, and I was just walking to try to.
Should have known, Illinois.
I needed to get neighbor sound.
Neighbor sound.
Yes, so
So you approached.
wanted to go knock on the guy's door.
Yeah.
It doesn't answer, so I'm turning to walk back down to the car where my photographer was. And luckily, I was with a person at this point. Sometimes we go out and shoot stuff on our own. And I came back down, and I hear this person saying, like, hey, and I'm a couple feet away, and I turn around, and he's got a gun out. And this is where people watching the video stream, if you've not seen me on KSTK, you'll know I'm a very petite, like big brown eyes, like, hi, I'm sorry. Like that really plays in well in these moments. I'm so glad I look so unthreatening. I'm like, hi, my name is Abby. Like I just pull up, bat my eyelashes and smile as big as I can. And I'm like, please be nice to me. So,
Did it de-escalate fairly quickly?
Yeah, totally.
Did you get the neighbor sound?
You sound like my producer now. You really are the
She was
worst.
written up when she got back to the station, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that sounds like a TV news producer.
How do you deal with I'm always fascinated when there are multiple big stories happening that require like the newsroom to disperse and be on multiple locations. And also when they're a variety in story as well. Like say you have blues stuff going on. Maybe that's going to be happening at night, but you got flood coverage going on too, so that's requiring people in different areas. And then something like, Steve Stenger resigns.
Yeah.
Like how does when you
Governor
have
threatens
That's
to
insane.
throw.
We wouldn't have that much news in a short amount of time. What are you talking about?
how do you go from flood serious, Stinger serious, and then Blues are celebrating, get ready for the game? How do you deal with a day like that?
Do you mean as a reporter or do you mean as a newsroom?
As a reporter.
Okay.
What about the human?
Yeah.
So, because our newsroom, we have people whose job it literally is to know where everybody is and assign where people should be going at any given time, knowing where the crews are. But as a reporter, honestly, that's just all in a day's work. I mean, it's so strange to say this, but I've had that several times where it's like in the morning I'm on the scene of something horrible that happened, and then I get to go interview somebody who is doing something really awesome in the community or something really clever and creative, and I get to go talk to that person. And then I have like 3 other things in between that's just kind of, especially on my shift, how the day tends to go, because I kind of work 2 days in one.
Sure.
I get in, hit the ground running, and then I start focusing on either the next day or kind of more long-term projects. But you compartmentalize a lot, and then you just kind of sit back and you think, well, at least there was a lot of change in that, because it might not have been as exhilarating if I was on the same thing all day.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the past couple weeks, we've really had a lot of that. Flooding in the morning, blues in the afternoon.
Right.
A lot.
And then like one other story gets dropped in. It could be like, I mentioned the Stinger thing, or like yesterday, the Pam Hupp thing happens.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just weird to have all these dynamics with different stories, but having to go
Well, and you do have to stay on top of stuff all the time. I mean, it's really hard to take a vacation. I know there's those people who say like, I'm always working, but we really have to know what we're talking about most things, because you never know when you're going to have to go be the one who's pulled to cover a story you've not really touched before.
Well, and Travis, again, I know you started with some stuff with Mizzou journalism, kind of looking at that stuff, so maybe you have an idea of this, but we saw it in radio as well. Even a market the size of St. Louis, if you want to be here, you can be replaced super fast. They'll probably, I'm not saying this about KCK, but I could see someone reminding you that you could be replaced fast. I could see where people would expect more of you, and the jobs just simply can't, there's not that many great jobs out there. You grinded your way up 2 different markets before here?
Yes.
And this is considered a place you could stay, but even some of the veterans that you work with, they don't get weekends, they don't do all that stuff. We talked about that a little bit, but just the sheer fact that there is no room for, I'm not feeling it today. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do Blues coverage. That's something that I find interesting with the career path you've chosen. Not even interesting, it's tough.
And that's why when people try to invite me to dinner during a weekday, I'm like, I'm already going to be tired for X amount of reasons. Like, you can't really show up not on your A game. I'll give you guys a little background, because I don't think I can get in trouble for this anymore. But a couple
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that. Last summer, a big group of us from the station went out on a float trip on a Sunday.
What?
And yeah, and the next morning, Brandon Morano and I were both, he was my co-morning show reporter at the time. We were both dragging on that Monday morning, and we were looking at each other. We're like, we cannot be.
Can't have a life.
Yes, you cannot be even a little hungover on this shift. Like, man.
I mean,
it's
happy
not
hour
good.
for you, it would be lunch.
Which is a great time to have happy hour still.
Was
A lot of,
Cusimano-
a lot of nurses believe in that.
Was Cusimano on that float trip?
Cusimano was not on that float trip. No, but don't tell him about it. He might be sad that we didn't invite him.
Was Rennie flexing his guns on the float trip?
No.
No.
Rennie
this
was
is a-
probably, raising money for some charity
Yeah.
or doing
Yeah.
some great
He's a
work
good
for
guy.
the community.
Good guy.
Speaking of charity, he did do a piece on Travis before he took off for his Sesame Street gig in New York. So big shout out to Rennie. That was wonderful.
He's great at telling great stories about just people doing good stuff.
Even if it's a mediocre story about a mediocre person,
Oh.
he does a
It's a
wonderful
great story
job.
Well,
about a
that's
mediocre
just-
person.
Thank you. That's well
there
said.
you go.
If you could
Thank-
ask Frank to unmute me on Twitter next time you see him, that'd be great. I'm tired of texting him all the witty things I have to
Frank
say.
Cusimano's too big time. He doesn't make eye contact with me. He just walks through the newsroom. I'm just kidding. He's a very nice
The
guy.
problem with Frank is that his radio producer shows him how to mute people or block them. And then if Frank wants to unmute or unblock them, he doesn't know how to do it himself.
Yeah,
So
that's an issue.
that's why his radio producer gets phone calls like, "Hey, can you adjust my fantasy football lineup? Please do this now.
Maybe
I
just
need to
don't
get."
get blocked in the first place.
Well,
Abby,
I
thank you for
can't-
bringing
Oh, yeah,
levity to the
yeah.
situation.
What am I
Abby.
supposed to not say anything?
Yeah, Travis, you have to agree
Someone
with her.
sounds a little
Yeah.
grumpy about being
like-
blocked on Twitter.
I'm muted. I'm muted.
It's like telling a dog.
Abby,
not
I
to
am
bark.
curious. Abby, I am curious. I wasn't obviously in St. Louis to be able to participate in the parade, so I was able to catch the stream, and I caught it on KSDK, and I had to remind myself how very difficult it is to probably cover a parade. What were some of the more challenging things for you guys in covering something that, I mean, as a city, we haven't seen since the Cardinals won the World Series in 2011. We don't get many parades, especially of that size. So what were some of the challenges for you
that's-
and the crew?
Yeah. So first off, it was a thing. I mean, we have had big parades in St. Louis, we've never seen anything like this. This was at least triple the size of the last Cardinals.
How do you feel about the numbers they said? They said 1.5 million. We were skeptical.
No, there's 0%.
Yeah.
0%. That's basically, I actually did a little brief story on this that's on our YouTube page, but basically what they do is they do an aerial shot, and then they have a couple different algorithms through which you can figure out how many people were there. Your 1.5 million estimate would assume that if you drew a line around where the farthest people were in the crowd, and it was quote unquote mosh pit density,
Yeah,
which is a
2.5
scientific
feet.
term. Who would have thought mosh pit density?
Oh, that's
2.5
cool. I
feet.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried
Good
telling
band
my
name.
mom, mosh pit
Great
density.
band
name. Mosh pit density.
Yes, appearing live at the Firebird next Friday. Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
2.5 feet, right?
Yeah, yes, and so that's not a thing, but everything about it was challenging, and that's why I'm really proud of our team for, frankly, pulling it off. I mean, think about your cell phone service when you're down at something like that. Try to do
It looked like it
TV.
was close to, now Mardi Gras Inc. says they get over 400,000 people. That could be debated also. It looked bigger than that, but that's the most comparable thing I could think of as Mardi
Right.
Gras in St. Louis.
Yeah, and that's also spread out because there
Yeah.
are people who don't even see the parade for
Correct.
Mardi Gras, you
Yeah.
know, so that's much more spread out. This is such density, and luckily people were being so nice because I'm that jerk who's squealing by and being like, excuse me. Again, being a small person, it's kind of
Right.
nice to be able to just kind of
You keep rubbing it in our
yes,
face,
exactly,
we get it.
exactly.
Okay.
I know. It's just so great to be me sometimes. But basically, having to get a signal out of that place was intense. Trying to stay on top of things. So what you wound up seeing, Travis, with that live stream, Frank and I weren't supposed to be on the same router, but that's just what wound up working out. So I'm sitting here trying to cover one of the greatest moments in St. Louis history. St. Louis sports history, hockey history, considering how far the Blues
Sure,
have come.
absolutely.
With Frank freaking Cusimano. How am I supposed to live up to that? you know?
Terrific stuff, Abby.
So, yeah,
Right
it
there.
was, I mean, they're okay. So that picture we're
Yeah,
talking about.
Abby, we got some questions.
Yeah, if you're listening
Yeah.
at home, we got a picture of Ryan O'Reilly wearing his hat. We've got Frank. We have Abby. What's happening
That's
here?
a pretty indicative shot of what I was being like that morning. So and you know what, if you hated me that morning,
Oh, that's amazing.
a lot of people were pretty ticked off at me that morning.
Really?
Because, okay, by a lot of people, I mean like 5 angry people on Twitter, and so I just assumed
okay.
I could multiply that. by-
Travis would let that ruin his month.
Right. Well, it could be kind of a bummer, but basically people were
Man.
saying like I was being more of a fangirl
Oh,
than
shut
I
up.
know,
So
and I
what?
wanted to be
It's
like
a parade.
It's literally a parade.
my assignment was to be on fans and crowds.
Right.
So
You're
I'm
not here covering
sorry.
the economic impact of it. No,
Yeah,
shut up.
Would you really? Who the heck wants to sit there and watch somebody who doesn't give a shit about the Blues? Oh, I'm sorry. Could I say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we have to cut the audio now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not-
all.
I'm
Hey,
not
take
on
it down.
TV.
Let's
Who
shut it
doesn't
down.
give a darn about the Blues? Who nobody wants to.
No,
see
let
that.
loose.
Just,
Travis
This
said
is
a lot
awesome.
worse in the first hour.
yeah, please don't let your
Yeah.
producers see the first
I was
hour.
gonna
We were
say-
fucking around a lot on there.
there you
but
go. You made me feel better. You made me
See,
feel
you
better.
do that. Tommy, you want to learn something? You make the guests now feel warm and welcome. That's how you do it.
Yes, exactly. Write that down.
Yeah, thank
Write
you.
it down.
See,
and-
you want direction.
She
Abby's
isn't.
gonna.
She,
yeah.
You
There
can
you
tell
go.
she's got producer
Yeah,
blood.
yeah.
So then I'm running around there, and so Frank just keeps running up and grabbing people. So I was like part reporter, part fangirl, if you will. And again, I don't care. I was having a fun time. I'm not a sports reporter. I don't need to be unbiased. I was out there having fun with the crowd.
As if one St. Louis reporter's unbiased either
Right.
way. Sorry, go
Honestly,
ahead.
just to throw it out there, and I don't like to play this card all the time, but if Frank kept talking about how it was one of the best moments of his life. All of our male sports reporters were saying the same thing. They weren't being fanboys. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on some of these people who
Let
have
it-
these comments.
Tell these people
I
that.
That's
promise this is
she's
just
dead
plain
correct.
comedy.
She's exactly right because I didn't hear
Yeah.
one person critique Frank, and Frank for at least that 3-hour broadcast said it about 25 times.
Exactly.
And yeah, I didn't see one letter to the editor in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch criticizing Frank Cusimano.
And what
Yeah.
do you want too? Joe Buck is by salary the greatest at what he does. By salary, whether you like him or not, that's an opinion. The greatest at what he does. Every single broadcast he does, if it has anything to do with St. Louis, and he rides the middle or he just reports what's happening, the other team's beating whatever St. Louis team, people light him up and say, "How dare you?"
Yeah.
How this? It's that. What a
You can't
dumb
win.
way to live.
You can't win. But my favorite part, though, was every time Frank I had to kind of corral him because he was getting so excited that he was taking the microphone, and our camera shot was up on a platform, actually. So that's why the camera couldn't move with us. And so he would just kind of keep going down. So at one point I had to, like, run up to Frank and be like, they can't get the mic anymore. Come on, we got to. And we were trying to get the parade to kind of keep moving.
Sure.
He was a real showstopper. I'll just say that. He kept talking to people. But then he was live because Ryan O'Reilly was coming down with the cup.
Right.
And so getting to that particular shot in that particular TV moment, I was thinking that Frank was still on just a solid live shot and they were just zooming in on Frank. I didn't realize that you could see me from the corner. Literally, people are all excited. They touch their cup. I grabbed the freaking cup.
Oh,
and
we
I
see it in the
grabbed
photo.
it.
Yeah.
I grabbed it in the earlier one too. I had it. I grabbed it by the bowl part at the top, and I was yanking it along. And I was like, "Come on, we gotta go. We're live on TV right now." And I kept, in order to make sure Frank could tell that I knew that we were live, I was like dancing my way over to him. I'm like going like this, like pointing at him. I'm like, "Don't worry, we're coming to you. We're coming to you." And I'm also trying to not look angry because
Sure.
you could look like you're just grabbing the cup and just trying to
Yeah.
storm away with it. I'm trying to be like, "Hey, we're having fun. We're bringing the cup over here to Frank Cusimano."
So
we
those
can
were
do a
your
live
dance
interview."
moves that you were using.
Something like that. I was
Okay.
just like bopping around. I would say bopping is probably a better word than
Yeah.
dancing. Yeah, it was. But it was super fun. I mean, I totally like the crowd right there was just so awesome. I was running back and forth with them, but before the parade even started, like, having chant-offs with them who could say, "Let's
course.
go Blues" louder. And people were just getting so into it. People were shaking my hand and giving me high fives. I was like, "This is awesome. You guys are the best town in the world." It was so fun.
Where I'm gonna try and pull this video up. I was wondering where you were when this particular event was occurring.
Uh-oh.
They are the champions.
Big DMX
Glory,
fan.
Gloria, Gloria, Gloria. I think I got your number, Gloria.
My friend Corey tweeted that.
Yep.
And he's one of our sports digital media guys. And I think I had like 1,000 retweets when I first. That is so good. I was actually back at the station and trying to get some food in me because I've been doing live shots since 6 a.m. that day.
That's fun.
But it was just, Brett Hull. How about
He's
Brett
the
Hull?
mascot we needed.
How lucky are we to have a gem like that, man?
Yes.
Tommy, what was it? How did you describe him? I believe he was like a family member.
He's like the uncle that would buy you drugs and then immediately ask for them back.
Travis, I believe.
Hey man, remember those drugs I got for you? You still got them?
Yeah, like 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, the ones
Those are
you
cool,
literally
huh?
just bought for me, Unc. Yeah, I need those back right quick.
Travis,
Oh, okay.
if he were to party with a liquor, who would he party with?
The one on his
Brett
If he
Hull.
would have partied with the
No, like I was thinking maybe you were telling us about maybe people using Brett Hull as energy. I don't know. It was something I had thought
Oh
about.
yeah, I said people drink. I think Four Loko drinks Brett Hull before it goes out on the town. I had some people up here in Brooklyn, and they were asking about the parade, and they were asking about Brett Hull, and I had to give them the background. And once they understood that, he had to endure some of the tougher times of the St. Louis Blues organization, they absolutely understood why that reaction came from Brett Hull.
Mm-hmm.
We'll check in on the boys in a little bit. Let them have their fun right now.
I
All
agree.
the people who are like,
Yeah.
I heard from a lot of people who were concerned that they were drinking on the parade route. And of course, you can have your, worried about your kids and things like that. But it's the Blues.
Like what? Can
what
we?
did you really
Yeah. Also,
expect?
like, can we talk about they've?
There was an
managed
actual
this
letter
each-
in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. There was a
Yeah.
letter in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, I believe, yesterday.
What do you?
There was a parent who thought the drinking was apparently too much. The Blues were celebrating it too much with the alcohol and
Hey.
the champagne in the streets. So
Travis.
yeah, there are people who said that.
Newsflash!
You win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Newsflash, Karen. these guys, they manage it all season long.
But the
Just just gonna tell you a little secret there.
Those are the same people that call up to channel whatever
Do you
it
take
might
those
be
calls?
and upset that their program is being
I
interrupted
can't
by
watch
severe weather
NCIS.
coverage. or
Wheel of
something.
Fortune being interrupted by severe
Don't
storms.
even get me started on
Yep.
those people.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you're here in St. Louis, dream job. You're working for KSDK. You get to work through all these things. What's been the toughest thing to cover? You kind of touched on it with the violence has to be really not fun to deal with. Toughest thing you've covered in your time in St. Louis?
Toughest, each assignment that there's a child involved is really
Yeah,
hard.
it's horrific.
It's one of those things where it just makes you want to grab someone and shake them, and I even, to your earlier question about how do you compartmentalize it, sometimes it comes up in an unexpected time. Like I was talking to somebody the morning of the parade, and he was so exuberant that nobody, St. Louis has been great and everybody's been wonderful and this town hasn't been violent. We're our best selves and yada yada. And I'm thinking about it, and in my head, I'm like, 6 kids were shot last week.
Yeah.
6 people under the age of 18. And that's hard. And it's hard for me, not just as a reporter and a human being, but like when I talk to people, my friends who live in other places, again, I have a ton of friends. They all live all over the place. And
We've
I have a lot of
discussed this,
friends,
and it's
yeah.
been established how popular
Yeah,
and
so,
amazing you are.
So many friends.
Mhm. Go to bed at 6 p.m.
Yeah, I don't have a
You
lot
party
of
with
time
nurses
for that,
at
but
noon?
It's okay.
Okay.
Nurses are great people.
Yeah.
And so then it's one of those things where I want to justify why I want to be here and why I want to live here. And I think all of us who care about St. Louis and like want to live here want it to get better. And that's where it does get hard sometimes to not just be like, look at the camera and say, wake up, people. Like, when are you going? How many more times do I have to tell this story before you start caring about these type of things? So that was pretty tough, that is pretty tough every time. But I think consecutively, though, when you look at big stories that we've covered, sometimes it's just tough to keep up on the details of things. Greitens, everything that happened with that was a doozy, to say the least, just to try to make sure I was getting it right, because that was history, again, and everything we're doing is impacting how this story will be told in the future. And so, or you guys have been talking about Pam Hupp a lot. That's just difficult because it's like, wait, that really happened?
That's
really
strange,
the
right?
details? Yeah.
You pinch yourself, and
Yeah.
I'm bad about it too, because I'm like, oh no, stuff like this doesn't happen, and I've got devil on my shoulder in Brooklyn being like, everybody's horrible, this is awful, this that. But the reality is, like, there are some really bad people out there that do some insane things, and to have to talk about them wears on all of us probably.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, again, one of those things where people come into journalism for different reasons, and whether another purist journalist will think whatever they think about my response to it. Mine is, I want to make people care about the place where they are.
Right.
And so every shooting impacts you, whether you live in St. Charles, whether you live in the city. Everything that impacts the city impacts the rest of this region. And so that's hard sometimes to keep telling those same stories.
Well, it certainly is. And sorry, Gardner, go ahead.
During the Greitens saga, what was like a moment that just like threw you back maybe a little bit, just covering that one?
Seeing
your neighbor?
I'm not joking. I live on the same street where he was living when that happened. Yeah.
I mean, it's a small little area. I mean,
and
St. Louis is small enough, and then to live in the same neighborhood.
You know the area, Abby.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, and I'm over at his place once a week, lives in one of the apartment complexes directly across the street from there.
Yeah,
so
it was just jarring, actually. The most striking moment was seeing the sitting governor at the time of the state of Missouri sitting there in the defendant's seat. That's strange.
It really, when you say it out loud, Travis does this a lot, and I'm not picking on Travis, but he talks about the office of the president with things that we see that happens, all these things. Locally, for that when you say it out loud, that's the governor. Like, that's the dude. Take away the machine gun crazy commercials, take away the pomp and circumstance. That's the governor of your state, and we're talking about 50 Shades of Grey, all this crazy stuff associated with it.
When you add in characters like Al Watkins and everything like that, too.
There were so many characters.
I mean, Al Watkins threatened or said he would tongue kiss Jason Rosenbaum of St. Louis Public Radio on the courthouse steps.
He's a good Mizzou journalist. I get it.
And so this stuff's
going on. Can you even imagine Jason Rosenbaum having to react to that?
Jason Rosenbaum went to University of Missouri for editorial journalism, and from the second he would come, we knew him a little bit, maybe. Travis, did we know it? We knew him through maybe Tony Luchtenmeyer, actually. Whatever it was. in Columbia, Jason was like, he was already an editorial reporter at the age of like 21. Now he takes his job very seriously. He's very good at what he does. And for that to happen to him,
Yeah.
of all people, now
It's
if
gonna
Gardner's
make a
there,
great
I
tweet
get it.
for him in 8 years when
Yeah.
he gets to throw back to it.
Certainly
That'll
will.
be great.
The one thing, and this is the thing, is like I'm always fascinated with, and I've asked some of your colleagues about it. I think I've asked Chris Davis and Casey Nolan about it.
2 of my dearest friends.
Do we-
Is
do we love them?
I don't know why I just smile and smirk whenever I see when you know someone's not going to answer questions leaving a courthouse. Yet all the reporters swarm, and you have to ask your questions. Right? Governor, did you take the photo? Governor, did this happen? Governor, like I've always wanted to just be there and throw in a random thing that doesn't matter and
If you
see if
did-
it.
if you did
like
something
is a
like
hot
that,
dog a sandwich?
It would be amazing as long as we weren't given one more question and that was the question.
That was
I'd
the
be
one,
so
yeah.
annoyed at you.
Right. Yeah. Like, there is a format to this.
Honestly, though, you never know. I remember I was working in Indianapolis, and I was at a homicide scene, and there was a guy who had apparently, I think, if I remember the details of this, he shot the guy who was an abusive husband to his sister. So he shot his brother-in-law, and that's what he was being charged with at the time. And as they were doing a press conference in front of the house, this guy's being led off to the side, and so I go running. The photographer stays where he was, just because he was all set up, and I grab my phone out and I start taking video, and I just asked, I was like, "Did you do it?" He's just like, "Yeah, and he deserved it," and blah blah blah. I'm like,
This is admissible.
Am I gonna have to go to be a witness?
I was like, "What?"
That's-
So you never know. You never know.
Absolutely
Wow.
wild. We would be rude if we wouldn't ask you about the new podcast that's available. I just put the link into the comments for this. We'll tweet it out.
Thank you.
We'll give you a bunch of love. It's Abby Eats St. Louis. Subscribe online, and I want to know all about this. You're here. You've been a wonderful guest. What's it like to host your own podcast, and then what's kind of driving the passion behind this, and what's been your favorite part of it so far?
Well, it's very different than here because I admire the fact that you guys have to like roll opens and things like that while it's actually happening.
No,
so
keep it simple.
good on you.
Keep it for the love of God. Keep it simple. It's extremely stressful and very difficult.
It's very much not simple because I went into it with a vision, and I'm one of those people who, if I have it a certain way that I want it to be, that's how it has to be. And so I bit off a little more than I could chew, I think, because we were doing
nice.
this.
Food. Yeah, good work.
We were doing this during our May sweeps period. TV has ratings periods. We were all like really just pounding the pavement. May is one of them, but that's also when we launched it. My producer Dory Olmos and I wanted to do stories not just about restaurant reviews or people necessarily, but we wanted to tell stories
Sure.
about food. And so something that you don't have to be a foodie or know what everything on the restaurant menu means to appreciate what we're talking about here. And you don't have to be able to name drop chefs, because a lot of people here, especially as St. Louis is a up-and-coming food town, is what a lot of us like to brag about.
I think it's a great city to do this idea here.
Yeah, and I found out so many interesting things about the people in the restaurants and everything like that. So it's been really cool. We've had, we did our first episode about farm to table and eating local. I talked to Rob over at Bull Rush, which is one of your neighbors here in Grand Center, and he does everything so local that he doesn't even have lemons in his
That's
restaurant.
wild.
How can you imagine a restaurant without a lemon in the
Yeah,
kitchen? And
that's
so
good.
it's so
Rough.
so local. And we went to a farm in North County, and so we did that. Then we kind of switched gears and did something about brunch and where that came from and the origins of the Bloody Mary and things like that. And then obviously we've had to do an episode about barbecue because that's
Well, there's not very many
so
options
St.
here.
Louis, right? I know. That was a really hard one to tell. That was the hardest episode I've ever had to write because I got so hungry. I had to keep taking breaks because I'm sitting there writing about Pappy's and Sugar Fire. Are you kidding me?
It's insane.
You can't do that. And so then,
Travis is in barbecue headquarters, USA, Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah, man. I don't
tell
know if
you
I
what.
trust their
yeah.
barbecue. I don't know what
Hey
that
man,
is.
y'all ain't gotta be disrespectful with it, man.
That's
kinda
also like
disrespectful.
their rodent control program.
Oh, shoot.
She called you barbecue rats, man.
All right, bet.
Yep,
Bet.
yeah.
I'm gonna remember
Abby,
that, Abby.
you need to come back like 90 times a week
All right.
now. Yeah, I like this a lot. So the barbecue episode was just insane.
That was just, and it's fun because I was walking out of Sugar Fire and this guy comes in with this book and he's like, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what it's called, but he goes in to try to talk to Mike, the owner of Sugar Fire, and he's,
Celebrity in his own, by the way.
yes, totally, and an awesome dude. but this guy who's walking in wrote a book about barbecue in America. So I grab him. I get to just put my headphones on, put a microphone in his face, and just have a conversation with him. And as much as I love the visual medium, podcasting has been so fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun challenge, and mine, again, it's a little different because it's a scripted. I write out a story. It's, interviews that I
Sure.
splice together. And
Nothing wrong with bringing some quality to the table.
yeah, I try to up the game around here,
Mm.
but just having to look for sounds and then just paying more attention to what I'm hearing around has been really cool. And also, frankly, not having to set up a camera and worry about my lighting and set the balance of everything.
There's so much more that goes into everything than people realize.
It's different. Yeah, it's different. But it's been a really fun creative challenge. Writing a story that's a minute and 15 seconds max to one that can be up to 30 minutes has been totally different. I get to, I think, show a little bit more personality.
That's
with it.
You're pretty buttoned up. Not you personally, but news
You
people.
have to be a little bit more.
It's tough when you go in to do a segment if you go on to TV. Like anytime we've done something, or Travis, our thing is let's just be silly and roll with it, and it's improvisational. But you go in and these people are playing by a certain set of rules. Like it's not that I feel bad. I don't want to overstep when I'm in that world because you guys have to follow a certain thing, or you are going to get 50 letters about how unprofessional you are or something. So it's interesting.
And we have people in our ears telling us, like, hey, you got to make sure you hit this and this and this and this. And
Right.
sometimes you're not as in control as you want to be. And here, I mean, shout out to the digital producer, the executive producer of our digital side, Jordan Palmer. It's just been kind of letting Dory and I run with it, and if we have an idea, we've just gone with it. And so we took a couple weeks off because of all the Blues coverage. It's been insane, and this is kind of like I've been doing normal KSDK stuff, and then I do the podcast as like a second job because it's so much work on top of that. Eventually, they're going to get tired of all my overtime, but had to take some time off partially because of that, and we're working on one right now about French onion soup. And it's that classic famous bar French onion soup.
That's
and
what I was
it
gonna say.
sounds, yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. It sounds
Grandma still talks about it.
exactly, but we're talking about it more or less from the sake
The
of
department store?
yeah. Yeah, they
Oh,
used
yeah.
to be famous for their French
There's a
onion
bar
soup.
on the south side called
Oh.
Famous Bar, and that's what I was like that. And then I was joking just now.
Oh.
It's from a department store?
Yeah.
Their recipe. Yeah. It's
Am I that much of a hayseed? I don't know. Like, what? Is this
well,
a thing?
my
Fair
grandparents
answer,
grew up
fair
in the
answer.
city.
Okay.
And so like that was part of the deal. Was
Yeah.
the
So-
famous bar
So
French onion
it sounds
soup.
like a horrible launching point, right? Who wants to listen to 25 minutes about French onion soup? Here's the thing. It tells us actually a lot more about like St. Louis and
Right.
why we are the way we are. And it's fun. We have a really fun interview with this really cool girl from the Missouri Historical Society
Sure.
that pulled out all these like first edition cookbooks, and we go through and figure out like the ridiculous things that used to be in St. Louis style cookbooks and stuff. And we talk about just the background of it in a way that even if it's my goal is even if it's something you don't think you care about, you'll walk away and you'll be like, huh, I never knew that. And
You'll
that's
connect those
interesting.
dots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, we got to come up with a better name for it because I don't want people looking at it and be like, I don't want to listen to a podcast about soup. But
Well, we'll source
don't
it.
know.
We'll source
I
it out.
think
it's-
We'll help you.
See,
Creative.
but that's intriguing to me. Ideas like that are intriguing to me. And it's just maybe it's just about how to sell that, whatever angle you take and how
Yeah.
to sell it. I don't know if it's a name or not, but it's like the guys know me. I have a fascination fetish with the river to pear.
yeah.
And like people
You're
are
a
like, "What
weird
the heck?"
guy.
And then
I worry
you
about
start
you.
explaining some of the history of things though, and it's like, oh, that's different. Oh,
Yes.
it does what? Oh
Yeah.
my God! Holy crap! And so
Right.
like French onion soup has a place in St. Louis history. Chris didn't know. Not many people know, especially that it like the genesis at a department store downtown. Like, oh yeah, I still have my grandma talking about. it.
Yeah.
I
and
get
it's
it.
We
one of
would
the
go
few-
we would go shopping and get French onion soup and this and that. I'm like, okay.
Absolutely. And it's one of the few truly St. Louis foods that we actually know where it came from because nobody really knows where toasted ravioli or Provel cheese or all that stuff came from. It's all legend.
Emos.
There you go.
Tommy the intern, everybody.
Real-
I think French onion soup comes from France.
We'll see.
Not the way you know it now.
Oh, look
You're
at
going to have to
you.
listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
It drops
You can-
on Tuesday.
That's right. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, be sure to check it out. Abby, St. Louis. Travis, do you have something?
Thank you, Abby, for coming on. Really appreciate
Oh,
it.
she's not done yet. We've
I
got more to talk
I got
about.
one
You just
thing.
wanted to thank me. That's okay.
One thing real quick here.
Oh.
You're welcome.
And you were talking about personality and being able to use that on the podcast, Abby. I'm looking at your Twitter bio, and the first line I need to ask about. Alex Turner called me sassy. Where does this come from?
Do you know who Alex
Oh,
Turner
good
is?
question.
Arctic Monkeys.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's the lead singer of the Arctic Monkeys, like my favorite band. So I've seen them in concert 3 times, never at like a festival or anything. Like I've gone
so
to
much cred.
travel to see them because that's what you do when you're a true fan.
boy.
But one time I went in Indianapolis and I went by myself because I just really wanted to go see them. And
You didn't have anybody to go with?
No, my friends weren't cool then. I had so many still, again.
Okay,
but
got
they
it,
just
got
weren't
it.
as
Okay,
cool as me.
I understand.
And we decided, a group of people that I kind of made friends with at the concert all decided to hang out by the buses. And we did.
Oh, why would you do that?
Because we're fangirls. I've already established
Okay,
that.
got it.
Somebody's
Well,
gonna call
somebody-
me a
yep,
fangirl,
there it
then
is.
that's what I'm really a fangirl about. And so we decided to hang out by the buses, and they came by and were taking pictures and stuff. So I got my picture with Alex, and then the other guys from the band. And then Alex takes another picture with some people, and he does this. He throws up a peace sign and like strikes a pose, whereas in mine we were just smiling. So I said, "Oh, I didn't get a cool pose like that." And he goes, "Well, aren't you a sassy little diva?" And I was like,
Gardner, will you clip that off? I'd like that to be a soundbite we use. Thank you. We usually have one of the owners of the company here is British,
That's
and he's in
great.
London right now. I'm upset he's not here to witness your.
my attempt at a British
That was pretty
accent.
good.
That
Thank
was
you.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I do have one thing before we get you out of here. World Refugee Day today. I know you have a Filipino background. I don't know which parents or
My dad's family.
Okay, dad's family. And my sister-in-law's family came over from Southeast Asia as well, more Vietnam. But I think this is important to highlight because it seems like something that's very important to you. Just keeping it super general, what's it mean to you to still support and be part of Filipino culture in St. Louis, where it feels like it's growing too?
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm half Filipino, half Polish, so both my parents. I'm first generation full American from.
That's
you know,
super
and
interesting.
So it's cool to see St. Louis increasingly recognizing how we are more of a refugee and immigrant.
Oh my God, that's all we are. Yeah.
Yes, society or culture, community than people like to think. I mean, dating back to when we were a German immigrant community. Now
Yep.
the immigrants look a little bit different, but we're still home to a lot of people.
I would
who
say
are
the
coming
German
here.
immigrants were the best immigrants, if I may say so.
I don't know if I'd want to be on the record saying
Oh,
things like
Travis.
that.
Is this bad? Is this bad? See, but we were the good ones that got out.
What is the sound effect for his shaking his head? Just like womp womp.
Oh hell no.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
probably.
There it is, Harry.
But
We
it's
got it.
just-
We got it.
Yeah, we have so. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Just remembering that there's so many organizations to get involved and here in the St. Louis area, whether it's hosting people for dinner or helping them with the resources they need when they're first getting here to the United States. Can you imagine if this would happen to you, that you had to flee everything you knew and go to somewhere else? And so you don't want to imagine that. So instead,
A city like St. Louis, we should keep our arms open because we got a lot of vacant buildings and we could use a lot of good people. So
There you
that's
go.
how.
Well, you
I
can
feel
also,
about it.
I mean, you could see how it creates new neighborhoods as well, especially in Bevo with when the Bosnians came over in the early 90s.
It
and
makes
that.
you interesting.
Totally.
Like every
Yeah.
city's got cheeseburgers, man. Like let's
part
keep
part
it
of
cool.
our St. Louis culture now.
Yeah.
St. Louis is a town, it's a boomerang town in so many ways where it's one of the top cities where people leave and come back. That's why we're getting the food scene we are, because these chefs and these people in the restaurant industry are going and working in New York, LA, Japan, and then bringing what they learned back to St. Louis. So just, it's cool to have ideas brought back here. So-
Certainly is. Well, keep up the great work. You need to come back anytime, especially whenever you're going to be sassy to Travis. Everybody listening, you can again check out Abby Eats St. Louis, and it's on the KSDK website, all over podcast platforms everywhere. Abby, we'll let you go. We still have to do fair or foul, right, guys? We're going to do that? Jump into that. We'll let Abby get out of here, get on with her day since she started at 2 a.m. We'll take a quick break. It's We Are Live here in St. Louis. Travis is in New York. We'll be right back.
We are live, live, live. We are live, live, live. We are live, live, live. We are live.
Welcome back to We Are Live. We've got Fair or Foul coming up. Quick reminder, free comedy tonight at Southtown Pub. The Intern will open the show. He's a stand-up comic. He's done Funny Bone.
Yeah.
Now he'll do Southtown tonight. Tom Brown doing a guest spot. Don't forget, we've got Meredith Hopping. She's very funny. She just advanced on in the Funny Bone competition.
Travis is frozen.
I can't tell if Travis hates us or if he's frozen in New York.
He's
Which
so
is it?
frozen.
But he hates us also.
Well, yeah.
Admit
Well, he
that.
mostly hates me.
I don't know. I've known him for over a decade, so there's a lot of hate built up. He kind of looks like Stephen Hawking in the photo.
Oh no.
That's what's happening here. So we've got Fair or Foul coming up, but comedy tonight again. I mentioned Meredith. Don't forget Larry Green, extremely funny, also just advanced in the Funny Bone competition. Last time he did our Southtown comedy show, gutted the room. It was very embarrassing for whoever had to go up next after him because it was very impressive. Chris Sear, you know him from Impolite Company, headlining tonight. He told me he's going to do just under 2 hours of stand-up comedy
That sounds
to
like
close
Chris.
out the evening. Big thanks before we do Fair or Foul to our friends at Getaway Carts, getawaycarts.com. They have a you could call it a custom hockey golf cart available right now. It's blue. It's championship blue. It's available. That's Getaway Carts. If you're driving around Soulard, the Central West End, you're needing a golf cart, be sure to check them out. Our friend Tommy Bannister at Circa Properties. He's the realtor for this show. You be sure to support him whenever you're buying or selling a home. That's Tommy Bannister. Circa Properties helping us, and he helps you as well. And Pet Once, St. Louis West delivery food service for your pets in the St. Louis area. Fresh, local delivered. Say hello to Lynette and Nick the next time you're needing food for your pets. Are you just making notes? Also, Brendan Schaefer, friend of the show, he's a reporter, covers the Cardinals, just chimed in the comments. He said he could see your Pokemon egg during the interview.
No.
Were you playing? Were you playing Pokemon Go?
No.
You got outed by a real reporter.
No.
You got outed by real. You're going to question his gumshoe ability? Like, come on, man. What do we got here? You got outed on this man.
I caught a Rosalia.
Oh my God!
That's
Did
not-
you
I
really?
don't want to know what that is.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
did.
know
Did
what's
you?
happening.
Yeah. You don't know what that means.
No,
though.
I don't.
Travis,
You
what's the
watched me catch
Pokemon
a-
scene in New York, man?
Oh, I bet it's great.
I don't.
He doesn't know.
I can't tell if he's frozen or
I
not.
think
So he's good.
My mom went down there and she got like a ton. It was great.
All right.
For her, she got like this shiny colored Pokemon. So it was like a
Let's
bunch
do
of
some
different-
fair or foul,
Guys,
everybody.
it's
We asked
just-
you a very important question about would you attend an amusement park or a theme park alone as an adult? And we'll have your responses, and we'll give you
Yes.
$10 to Southtown Pub if we pick your winner. Tell them, Travis.
It's not time for the people's fair or foul.
At this defining moment, change has come to America.
People often ask me, what's fair or foul? Is it a segment? Is it a movement? Is it hope? I can't say for certain. Time will be a true test of its power. But I can say, fair or foul is now and forever for the people. Gather around the radio with your loved ones and hold on to your butts. It's now time for fair
We give it back to you, the people.
or foul.
To all the idiots who stayed up last night to watch the Cardinals barely beat the Marlins. That's me laughing at you.
That's a good game.
Oh, Tommy, what?
Cardinals are 2.5 out of first. Are you just a Yankees fan now?
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pathetic. They're so
Does
bad.
the rest of the
and they're
division
still
just
in it.
suck ass too?
Yeah.
Yeah, such is life. We asked you that super important question. Would you go to an amusement park alone as an adult? Tommy revealed he does often.
Yeah, I mean, I go to the zoo to play Pokemon Go alone all the time.
Okay. Can we do a dating segment where our last guest, Abby, coaches Tommy on what not to say to reel in some ladies? Okay, here we go.
Comic-Con.
Couple. Oh, damn it. You beat me. Fair. Nothing creepy about this. No bodies defined here, officer. Gonna load up on the boss right now. Papa's got to roll. Out. That's from TT's Pink Eye.
Ah, well,
Do you think it's creepy, Travis?
it's not creepy.
Yes.
Look, if it's creepy, then I'm a creep, and I'm not a creep, so...
From Cankles. Fair. Just like Travis's love life, an amusement park is best experienced by yourself.
Yeah.
I don't even want to read
That's
this
right.
last part. No matter how early you get off, no loved ones are there to laugh at you. That's from Cankles. Do you see why we don't keep the guests around for Fair or Foul?
Bitch.
I like that.
Gardner, who you voting for?
Since Travis is pouting, I'm going with Cankles.
Tommy the intern.
Cankles.
Oh my God, Travis.
TT's pink eye.
I feel this is an opportunity for me to make amends with Travis.
No, don't.
He's been
Don't do it.
flirting with Big Bird about doing a podcast. I get jealous. I'm going TT's pink eye. That'll tie it up. That'll tie it up. So
Now I gotta send 2 emails.
no. Nobody wins. You know why? Because we get to choose. That's right. Tell you what, whoever shows up at Southtown Pub between the two of you tonight, you get $10. There it is.
Oh, that's fair.
Fair
Come on,
foul.
come on, Cankles.
You have to attend to get the $10. For Travis in New York, Chris Gardner producing here in St. Louis, Tommy the intern, my name's Chris. Big thanks to Abby Llorico from KSDK. Be sure to check out her podcast, Abby Eats St. Louis. We're back tomorrow live at 8 a.m. Be sure to check us out then.